Get $100,000. I don't make $100,000 probably in my whole life.
Hey there, friends. Welcome back to As a Man Thinketh on Yanasa TV. So just to be clear, the law is on the side of the state of Washington's Department of Ecology in this particular case. However, the department's abuse of power is nothing short of predatory. They are taking a sledgehammer to somebody without resources to fight back. 20 days of farming versus a lien to wipe out this entire farmer's life, his legacy, to steal his land, is a disproportionate reaction from the Department of Ecology that they have never done before. But one thing they have done before is target multi-generational farms within their state, generally attacking the elderly. That might just be my opinion, but I don't know how else you can look at this situation. Many of you have noticed that we keep wearing these leather patch hats that say defend the right to farm on them. These leather patch hats support our nonprofit, Meet My Neighbor Productions. You can get your hat at Yanasa Trading Co. and help us defend the right to farm through education, outreach, and, as we've been doing over the last couple of years, farm relief efforts. So get your leather patch hat and let others know that you defend the right to farm. The state of Washington's Department of Ecology is essentially weaponizing regulation against the defenseless. Like I said, that's my opinion, and I have a lot of opinions about what's going on here. Robert Greif's family purchased their farm in 1952. At that time, Robert Greif's father actually applied for water rights. He then proceeded to farm that land continuously up until now, irrigating the farm at the same time of year every single year for 20 days or so. The family invested in the farm, the infrastructure, the irrigation, the crops, the land, under the assumption that their water rights were legitimate. Then the state of Washington's Department of Ecology comes in 70 years later and says, you don't have the right to do that. We're fining you $100,000.
Get $100,000. I don't make $100,000 probably in my whole life.
And we're putting that in a lien against your property, and we're gonna take it from you. In a nutshell, that is what is going on right here. You can't chalk it up to anything else. The state should have provided clear assistance and mediation for somebody who is probably going to have a difficult time navigating this bureaucratic legal complexity of a water system, then escalating fines and taking their land from them. But that is the action that the state chose to take. Escalate farms, steal the land. This is not the first time that the state has done this. If you followed this channel, at the beginning of the year, the state of Washington and Whatcom County sued all of its legendary family farmers to make them go to court and prove that they had water rights. So the state of Washington has sued over 30,000 water users for water rights. So the state of Washington is asking 30,000 water users to prove that they have rights to use the water that they're using. They sent out 30,000 letters via certified mail. An adult has to sign for these letters. I mean, this is the real deal. And they're asking these water users to prove that they have water rights. Because here's the thing, is the state implemented this water right permitting system in 1917, but they didn't do a good job at actually following through with permits and making sure that people were doing what they were supposed to be doing. People just continued under the assumption that they had the right to do it. So the state of Washington went to Whatcom County, and this is just one county in the state, and I told you in that video at the time that this was going to spread to other counties within the state, but they basically sued them all and said, you have to go to court and prove that you have these water rights from decades ago, or we're taking them from you. So suddenly you have a disproportionate attack on elderly farmers who have been farming their land for decades. This is a civil rights case as far as I'm concerned with the USDA. They should be filing a civil rights investigation against the Washington Department of Ecology. There's no other way to explain this. This is targeted action against a certain group of farmers who, quite frankly, probably don't know their way around the system too well. Do you remember when Joe Biden, our 80-year-old president, mind you, this farmer is 85, older than Joe Biden was, and actually he was not even 80 yet. They investigated him for mistakenly taking classified documents and storing them in his garage. At that time, special investigators concluded that Joe Biden was a, and I quote, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
Last year, former special counsel Robert Hur said he would not recommend charges against then-President Biden amid allegations he, Biden, mishandled classified materials as a senator and as vice president. Hur said a jury was likely to find Biden was, quote, a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. The White House denounced Hur's characterization back then, and Biden, for his part, said, quote, I know what the hell I'm doing. The White House at the time released transcripts of Hur's interview with Biden. It refused, however, to release audio of that 2023 interview, which we now have. Now, we're going to run long excerpts of that audio so you can judge Biden's memory for yourself. The first thing you'll hear is Biden's response to a question about where he kept documents related to his book, The Cancer Moonshot, and 2 centers under his name.
Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president. Not a mean thing to say. I mean, he just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did.
And they let him go. But the state of Washington sees a man even older and says, just because he can't navigate our extremely complex permitting system and understand the complexity of our water laws within our state, we're going to just simply fine him to oblivion, lien his property, and take it from him. We're going to take an 85-year-old's legacy away from him. Everything his family has worked for generations. Robert's story is not a story of reckless overuse. It's not a story of pollution. And it's really not a story of willful defiance. In fact, when they first approached him in 2019, he explained to them, hey, my dad had filed for water rights back in the 1950s. We've been doing this for 70 years.
Greif has been farming here since as long as he can remember and says his family has held water rights to the land since the 1950s.
Well, that's 70 years. We had no problems. After I got a few letters, I sent everything back.
Then he even said, hey, look, I'll transfer my water rights from another 69-acre property. Let's do the right thing here.
I just think it's, just asinine to say you can't water over here. It's illegal over here.
But they hit him on technicalities because he didn't fill out the paperwork correctly. I think the fact that the state of Washington did nothing about this for 70 years of irrigation. If you look at the irrigation systems on this guy's property, they've been there for quite some time. The fact that they haven't done something for 70 years is a legal precedent in this case, I think. But this system was never set up to be fair for family farms in the first place. It is an arcane technical water system that by design is going to leave a lot of these older farmers out. And then to come in and suddenly say, you know what, because, your permits weren't formally processed, and a lot of them don't even know where the paperwork is at this point in time, we're just going to take your water rights from you and shut you down. And this isn't, like I said, this isn't just Robert. This happened to an entire county of farmers. What makes this case even more unusual is the extent of the fine. If you read through the Department of Ecology's website, they talk about fining farmers $5,000, $6,000, $15,000, maybe as much as even $23,000. But a $100,000 fine, that's ludicrous. It doesn't even follow within their own guidelines. I get it. From the Department of Ecology standpoint, this is a clear-cut case. Unpermitted irrigation. If they make any exceptions at all, the rule of law collapses, which is a problem in a state with over-allocated water rights. But because of the complexities of this law system, the ones who actually benefit from it are the large corporations with all of the attorneys who can actually go in and mitigate and negotiate with a bunch of Department of Ecology employees who have been trained and trained and trained around this system. Not an 85-year-old farmer who can't even afford an attorney to get help in this case. He's out there all alone. He is defenseless in this case. He has nobody to help him pay for attorney's fees. He has no way of possibly paying a $100,000 fine. It is not an equitable solution. The state of Washington knows that. That wasn't their intent. They want to get rid of the old 85 farmer and scare the pants off of the rest of them. The Department of Ecology does have the right to escalate fines. And like I said, I agree. We have to follow rules. We have to have laws in place. But when we implement these laws, when we put these things in place, we have to keep in mind the people who have been there for generations that have been doing this and make sure that what we're implementing and we're putting in place is protecting those people. The whole point of this is to protect people, to make sure that people are getting access to clean water. The purpose of this is not to confiscate land from generational farmers. This is why the state of Washington has lost 3,700 farms over the course of 5 years, approximately 2 operations per day. The state of Washington has wiped them out through their rules and regulations. They have a serious problem. The state does have a right to enforce the law, but a law that is enacted without compassion, without context, and without proportionality is a clear path to tyranny. And that is a line that is very, very easy to cross. And it's un-American. Greif's land is his legacy. It's in his entire wealth. It's all he has. To reduce a man's life's work, his father's work, to collateral of some bureaucratic enforcement action is not the rule of law. It's not regulation. What it is pure cruelty. It's predatory. The state of Washington's leaders cannot claim to protect citizens if they're destroying the most defenseless among them. Now, in almost all cases, water rights are something that fall under state jurisdiction. However, there are cases where there are multiple states involved, and the federal government often gets involved in those cases. But what we're seeing in the state of Washington, these injunctions against farmers in Whatcom County, this land grab, it was what it essentially is from Robert Greif, their policies are disproportionately targeting, whether it's intentional or not, that's up to the investigation, but they are disproportionately targeting multi-generational farms, generally run by the elderly, which makes this, in my opinion, a prime opportunity for the USDA to investigate a civil rights claim against the state of Washington for what they're doing to their farmers. As we move forward with the Farm Bill, I think that Congress needs to focus on not allowing funds to go to states that are using predatory action against family farms. I mean, that should just be a requirement of the Farm Bill right there. What they are doing does nothing for family farms. What it's doing is it's helping out, like I said, these larger corporations, these corporate farmers, big ag, and things like data centers, and acquiring water rights from people who don't know how to work the system, who are losing their rights to these people. They're losing them. They've had them for decades. Nobody ever enforced any action against them. They assumed, they invested, they built their legacy around what they thought was legitimate, to just have it taken away by people who are able to work push a bunch of paper. I don't know what anybody can do to help Robert Greif. I don't have a checkbook to write him a check to help him get an attorney. But I do think that talking about this and getting people to see how these types of actions are predatory. I mean, I get it, Robert, because if I see things that are just way above my head, I tend to just kind of blank out on them too. I mean, if I can't figure my way around the system, we all do it. We step out of the system. We go, man, this is just too much. And it gets a lot of us to just give up. Some people don't even move forward. Props to Robert for at least sticking to what his family has done for decades. But that doesn't make it right. What I think needs to happen is, with a lot of these things, it needs to be simplified, or you need to have mediators, people who can help the public in trying to navigate their way through these very complex systems that are designed to relinquish rights from private citizens and hand them over to corporations. They're designed that way. And I say that as a matter of opinion, but I don't know how else you can look at these systems and say that they don't do that. There is no way that the average farmer, an 85-year-old farmer, especially if our 79-year-old or 78-year-old president at the time was deemed unfit to stand trial for his mindless mistakes. And I'm not saying that Robert is mindless at all. What I'm saying is that he was raised very differently than the rest of us. They didn't have all of these technical systems set up. Regulators have pushed regulation and regulation and regulation and regulation and regulation for so long that it's become extremely complex to the point where you have to have, it's like our tax system, you have to have an accountant. If you can't afford an accountant, you're kind of out of luck. You have to have an attorney to be able to get any water rights. If you don't have an attorney and you can't afford an attorney, you're out of luck. By design, that system shuts people out, and it needs to stop. Anyway, guys, that's my 2 cents for today. When I read this story, I was bothered by it, and I, like I said, the law is on the side of the Washington State Department of Ecology, and I recognize the necessity of protecting our water resources. But what is actually happening here is predatory. It is going far above and beyond regulation.